With the Board of Realtors, and I'm always talking about time. I mean, that's, in real estate or any self-employed business, time is the key, is how you manage it. And that's, you're talking about time for money, time to have quality of life, time to get more listings. It's always time. What we're talking about here is how you can make more money with your time. Well, obviously getting more deals accepted. I can't help you get more customers per se, but I can help your customers get their offers accepted more readily than they would with other pre-approvals or pre-quals, okay? As I've talked about, Tim can testify to, we upfront underwrite and process our loans before people even have houses. It makes a huge difference when you're going into a market where offers are multiple, when your pre-approval letter says it's a commitment letter. Okay, listing agents aren't even going to know what it is because they're not used to seeing it, because quite frankly, we're the only ones that do it. So you do have to tell them, this person has been underwritten already. This loan can close as soon as the appraisal comes back. Very different than what's out there, which is, I've talked to this person, I've run their credit, and I think they're okay. Some of them will go as far as say, I've run automated underwriting, and based on what I have, we should be good. We're offering more than that. We're offering a letter from an underwriter, whether it be FHA, USDA, VA, or conventional, that says we have underwritten this file. We have looked at verifications of employment. We have looked at tax transcripts. That makes a difference. It makes your borrower more desirable. I'm doing a deal for an attorney in Auburn's son, and they were getting outbid on every property. I told their agent, make sure when you present this, you tell them we're giving you a pre-qualification with a commitment letter attached to it. Because a lot of times they don't look at it, so they just, it's another letter, yeah, they're good. After their agent started doing that, the second house they put an offer in that had 12 offers on it, theirs was accepted. Okay, so I can't make you get more buyers. I can't help with that, but I can help with the ones that you have, making their offers more desirable. Working with somebody, with Jen, we're working on right now. The guy approved via the website.
Just talking.
Did he get off his plane? Yeah,
No, he's driving.
He's driving. He was amazed with the process. He didn't even know if he could buy a house. He wasn't sure. What can we do? We have him underwritten and approved for $310,000. Underwritten. So that when that offer comes in and there's 12 other people on it, let's face it, if it's a good house, there's going to be other offers. If it's priced right, your offer can stand out. The only other way to make an offer stand out is to make it be cash. I mean, I can't control that people don't usually have $250,000 or $300,000 in cash. I can make their offer look as good as cash as possible. Another thing which makes it look better is whether or not they are ready to close in 2 weeks. The fact that you're putting in that offer that they can close in 2 weeks or 3 weeks makes your offer stand out as opposed to the traditional 45 to 60 days. But in order to make all this work, you got to meet me in the middle. We got to get your borrowers up front. We have to get them to apply before they find a house so that we can make this work. Tim will tell you too. It's a process. It's different. It's an education. It's not what's in the industry. But by following it, you are going to have stronger buyers. Now, the flip side, when you go on a listing appointment, we have brochures designed for you to talk to the people if you're trying to list their house. Say, listen, my lender is going to get you underwritten before you even put your house on the market. Not he's going to look at it and give an opinion and then the underwriter rips it apart down the road. This is, an underwriter is going to look at it before we even list your house. Let's take a look and see what you're going to be able to do. Okay? I myself can't say, I have had happen, USDA loans, where there's an income limit. We don't have that file looked at by an underwriter. There were what-ifs that we weren't aware of, a second job that no one spoke of, things that only get found out during an underwrite that now this person can't do what they said. We have it going on right now. The person literally took a second job as a waitress. She no longer can get a USDA loan. We would have never known that had we not ordered the tax transcripts and saw that she was claiming this other job that she didn't tell us about. 2 years ago, the answer would be, well, just quit her job. USDA said, no, we're not doing that anymore. People quit their job, then they get it back. No. If you've had that job within the past 12 months, we're counting the income. We can't count it to qualify you, but we can count it to disqualify you. Income-based programs are very picky. If you made an extra 25 cents, they're going to use it to disqualify you. The flip side is they're going to say, well, you haven't had it long enough. We can't count it to help you. So your qualifying income may be 82,000, but your disqualifying income is 103. You now don't get the loan. Better off to find that out now before someone lists their house for sale or before you spend 6 months driving someone around. They have this letter, you think they're good, and then they're not. And to the lender's credit, a lot of times there are things we wouldn't know about. We know about it through the data verify, through the transcripts, through what happens when an underwriter looks at a loan and does their verifications. People don't tell you everything up front. Sometimes because they don't want to, and sometimes because they don't think it's relevant. Their friends said, don't say anything. You may not get the loan, so they don't tell you. About 2 years ago, something came into place. All lenders have to use it called Data Verify. You've heard me talk about it. Data Verify is an independent source that we are required to use for secondary market loans where they check everything. They're going to find out if you owned a tent 35 years ago. It shows up. How they find out, I don't know, but it's a social security number trace. And we've had it happen where we find out about lots that people own up in Maine, trailers they own in Florida that they didn't put on the application. It's showing up now. You're not going to learn that through a traditional, I ran automated underwriting, here's a letter. And there's only so many questions you can ask. I mean, you can't, do you get child support? Do you pay child support? Do you pay alimony? There's only so much you can ask someone in an application. That's where Data Verify came out, because what we were finding, and Fannie and Freddie Mae would do their audits, they were finding out that these applications were not accurate. They were way off. First system, they were saying, oh, it's loan fraud. All the loan officers are lying. They're learning it's not the case. It's just stuff we don't know about. Do you own any other properties? No, I don't. Well, I didn't think a timeshare was relevant. I didn't think this was relevant. It's a piece of land, but I don't have a mortgage on it. Do you pay taxes on it? Yeah. Oh. We have not deal right here in this office. Couldn't buy the house. We found out at the last hour. They didn't do their information ahead of time. We found at the last hour through Data Verify, they own 2 pieces of land up in Maine. But we don't have a mortgage on it. The property taxes were over $6,000 a year. It was tons of acreage. They no longer qualified. They actually weren't able to buy the house as a result. Those are things that we want to do ahead of time. It's so important. If there's one thing you get at today, people don't mind bad news if you tell them in the beginning. Day one, listen, this is a problem. We can fix it or we can't. They don't mind. It's when the moving truck is packed and they're out of their house, they've sold it, and you're telling them you either can't get the mortgage or you can, but it's going to be a higher interest rate, higher payment, something you weren't planning on, more money down, got to involve family members. Okay. That's really all I wanted to say today. There was one other thing I did want to bring up because I learned this myself recently and I wasn't aware of it. About a year ago, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac came up with a decision and they said that down payments can be gifts. It's always been my understanding in lending that the first 3 to 5% had to come from a borrower's own funds unless it was an FHA loan. They've changed that, which is helpful when it comes to condos, especially because we all know no condos are FHA approved anymore for the most part. So there are conventional means. We have 3% down programs where people can buy a condo 100% gift. We also will allow non-occupant co-borrowers if they're family members. That used to also only be an FHA situation. Again, very helpful with condos. You see a condo and the borrower comes in with a pre-approval and they say, I'm going FHA, do yourself a favor and get them looked at, because I mean, there's next to no condos FHA approved anymore. And what we're finding is even though we can try to get them pre-approved, these condominium complexes don't want to be FHA approved anymore. There's a stigma attached to it, whether it be right or wrong. They have a right not to want to do it. For those of you who don't know, FHA is typically lower credit scores, lower down payment, no reserves, and complexes are saying, we feel that's what's causing our problems. We're selling to people that shouldn't be buying. So when we go in and we try to get them FHA approved, they won't give us any of the documents to get them FHA approved. But we have a 3% down program. We also have our MAP program, which for people that qualify, we will give them 3% down payment on a conventional mortgage towards that 3% down program. So it's a no money down program that's not USDA.
What's that?
It's called MAP. It's a tremendous program. Again, how to get certain offers accepted, how to make more people approvable. This program is fantastic. If they qualify, it's a 97% loan to value loan, but we give them 3% towards the down payment. It's not a property that they have to keep for any amount of time. They do have to live there. And it's only good for single unit homes.
Is that what you tried?
Condos considered, when I say single unit, condos will be single unit.
Did that work for Don when I forwarded you? Don had a client that had a question about.
Yes, we ended up going not because what happens is some people are like, well, they just, this woman should have gone that way, but she was like, no, I just want to put my money down when I don't want it. It's a special thing. It's like, well, you're doing yourself a disservice, but that's fine too. You don't have to take it. But
the question on that one was what? There was a gas plant across the street, a propane tank across the street, big, like a large propane tank across the street. And there's some USDA. Was it USDA or FHA? It was an FHA guideline that said it basically said it can't be within a certain number of feet of.
Do yourself a favor when if you're a listing agent or you're working with a buyer, if there's a property that's near train tracks, a dump, a highway on-ramp, give me a call. Anything that it's near, FHA appraiser can come back and say, we feel it affects marketability. Even though, let's face it, Worcester is surrounded by train tracks. Is it really affecting marketability? I don't know. But if they say it is, you're not doing the loan. And if we can't do a new appraisal, FHA appraisals follow that property for 6 months, not the borrower, the property. So guess what? No one else is doing FHA there for 6 months either. But the point is, ask the questions. I'm glad you brought this up because we've had this happen a lot lately. If you're working with a buyer and they're FHA approved and you're showing them houses, make sure they haven't been sold within the past 91 days. It's coming up all the time lately that they're flips and we're not asking the right questions. And then the appraiser goes out and they say this property's only been in the market for was sold 27 days ago for a $92,000. Now you're selling it for $212. We got a problem. And FHA says you can't start the application for 91 days. It's not closed. So this whole thing is getting put on hold. We will allow an addendum to the purchase contract with a new date, and now we start that day.
You can't start before the 90th day?
91 days.
I thought you couldn't close before 91 days.
Application date. FHA case number has to be assigned 91 days from the prior, no less than 91 days from the prior transfer.
That's good to know.
And it's happening a lot. Larry had an agent screaming at him on the phone, new agent, not from here. It was 100% his fault because he didn't ask the questions. Saying we asked this buyer, we should have known this, and we had to get the owner broker involved to politely pull this gentleman aside and say, you didn't do your job. It's no different than showing somebody a condo that isn't FHA approved, that's going FHA, or showing somebody a property that has a roof that's fallen apart or chipping and peeling paint. It's your job to know these things. So when you see or you're working with a buyer, if something doesn't sound right, whether it be me or whatever lender you're using, make sure you call and ask the right questions because it's going to come back on you. Least of which you're wasting your time. Even if nobody blames you, you still just wasted 75 weekends showing people something and they can't buy it. Okay, FHA is by no means the kiss of death. You just have to do your homework. Just like you have to do your homework with any program. We get calls all the time from agents. Can we do this property? They won't turn the utilities on. The answer is no. It can be FHA, VA, it can be anything. If you're getting a loan, those utilities have got to be turned on unless you're doing a renovation loan. And we get calls all the time, which I'm more than happy to answer, because you'd be surprised how many times we get to ordering the appraisal and our appraiser calls and says, we're not going to even do this. They won't turn the power on, they won't turn the water on, they won't turn the gas on. That's not just FHA, that's any loan in existence. If somebody tells you otherwise, they are misinforming you. How can we lend on a house that we don't even know if it has power or water or heat? You could turn those utilities on and every pipe in that house could be broken or missing if it's in Worcester. We see it all the time, the copper's gone.
They could already have tenants in the basement.
What?
They already have tenants in the
Yeah, we
basement.
can't do that either. So, I mean, again, ask, the biggest thing you can do is just don't be afraid to ask the questions. I say the only stupid question is the one you didn't ask. We've all been there. We've all been had tricky situations. We've all been new to a situation. We just want to, we're here, Tracy has us here because we want to help you make more money. And also to help you be more educated. And as a lender, the parts that I talk about are how to make your financing more attractive, how to make it more smooth, how to make it easier, and how to direct your clients into the right programs that work best for them. And when you do that and you stay together as a team, these people aren't going anywhere. Kim and I are working with a woman, it's been 6 months, but because we underwrote her ahead of time and pre-approved her and got her a commitment letter, she's not leaving him because she's appreciative of the fact that he directed her in the right way. She's not leaving me because she doesn't want to go through that process again. As a result, I'm talking great about Tim. Tim's talking great about me, hopefully, and you don't lose the buyer.
Most of the time.
Kyle just said that. He's like, you come very highly recommended to Greg.
When that's the thing that we do. I mean, the first thing, ask somebody, how did you get a referral? First thing I'm not even kidding. I told Jen this last night. He said to me, I'm not really sure. With somebody on Zillow, who should I talk to? And I said, well, no, who was it on Zillow that you said, well, let me look. And he said, Jen Rowe. And at first I didn't get it because he said it all together. I'm like, Jen Rowe, who's Jen? I'm like, oh, Jen Rowe. And then I'm like, Jen's great. She's been in this area for a very long time. She works very hard for her buyers. That is who you want to work with. And that's why we want to work together as a team. Because again, this is a $310,000 buyer that I could have very easily said, you know what, this is who you should choose. Not because I'm trying to screw anybody, but because I didn't ask the question, how did you hear about me? I learned 25 years ago the hard way, very easily made a mistake, and I didn't ask that question. I referred somebody to an agent that was referred to me by another agent. And that buyer conveniently forgot that they told me they didn't know who it was. And then all of a sudden, oh no, this was the person. I told him that. I'm not even kidding you. To this day, that agent brings that up. 25 years later, this agent brings up to me, oh, you send any more deals over to this guy? And the guy that she's talking about is dead now. They will not forget. Somebody sends you something, you do something, it will never be forgotten.
And it's too easy for people to skip these days.
Well, just like this. Well, it's just somebody on
skipping all
Zillow.
over.
I
I
don't really know
talked to
who
him
it was.
twice. I said, he got your link in my email. That's fine.
Yeah.
I still didn't remember.
But that's the thing,
It was him.
don't.
They
Oh,
don't.
he definitely does now, and that's the thing, you do that. And then 10 seconds later, I got a referral from Danny DiRoberto off of a Zillow I'm doing with him, and it was the same thing. Well, who should we use for a realtor? Well, how'd you hear about him? Danny's who you want to use. He's good at what he does. Yeah. Protecting the relationships is very, very important to me. And I hear it a lot where, again, it wasn't on purpose. No one's trying to steal anything from you, but I'm too busy to ask the question. So go use this girl, go use her, go use him. I don't do that ever. And my team doesn't do that. I make very clear to them, you've got to ask those questions. You get a phone call, you don't know where it came from, you have got to ask the questions and be sure of who they are working with, and that you are then going to build up that agent to the highest degree that you can, because they just did that for you. Okay? And that's why this works. There's nothing worse, and we've had it happen, we all have. You refer somebody to a lender, and then they somehow aren't using you as an agent. How does that happen? Sometimes nothing you can do about it. They didn't like you, whatever. But more so if you don't have the lender trying to go to bat for you. But I have had it happen, and it's a lousy place to be, where a realtor will refer me somebody, and then they say to me, I think I'm going to start to work with somebody else. And I try my hardest to push it back, but there's only so much you can do because you're going to lose them too.
Right.
And then no one benefits. But it happens, and it's lousy. So we got to work together with that, because today, in the time that I talk, Tracy could have 13 real estate agents showing him a property tonight without even opening his mouth or picking up the phone. It's so easy. Or you're sitting at work, the woman in the next cubicle, call this realtor, call it. There's so much. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when we started doing this, that didn't happen. You got a book on Monday. I'm working with Matteo. I don't even know who else I'd have to get out the phone book and start calling people. So he's my agent. And I'm going to go down to my bank, and I don't care what their rate is. It's the one that I go to. And there's no kibitzing or outside influences. Today, it's everywhere. I can hear people typing, looking up things as I'm talking to them sometimes. We all can hear that.
Mhm.
How much more important that we're working with people that we trust that are going to really do what we need them to do for us, which all goes right back to where we started. How do we make more money? It's by keeping deals, getting offers accepted, and not losing deals before they've even happened.
Exactly.
And that's about it. You guys have a good
All
rest
right.
of your
Thanks for
morning.
stopping by.
Thank
And
you.
All right.
Thanks, Greg.
appreciate it, Greg.
Let me know when that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, because I have some questions.
Okay.
I'm meeting with him Saturday.
All right, let's get going on to the rest of this power hour. So what I wanted to go talk about today was making more money per deal, which also includes making more money per hour. I don't know how many of you think about this on a daily basis, but everyone should in this business should think about, what am I doing? What's its value per hour? Is it reaching my goals of what I feel I'm worth per hour? Or am I lower than I should be right now and working towards a different goal? Have any of you taken the Buffini class? So you all know, obviously, you've taken the Buffini class, that we have different hats we put on. To me, there's a few different hats that you put on, and they each have different values. There's a fair amount of $15 an hour work we all do.
I was doing that shit last night. You saw it.
Yep.
Witnessed it all.
And we may never replace that. Some of us may at some point with admins and whatnot, but it's important to acknowledge it. Acknowledge how much effort you're putting into that low dollar work and how much you're putting into the higher dollar work, which would be prospecting and working with buyers and sellers. But then when you start working with buyers and sellers and prospecting, are you doing it effectively so that you're increasing your return on invested time? It's important questions to constantly ask yourself. And that's what I want to talk about today. So I had done this a while ago, and we did a class on this, and I thought it was good to bring it back and go over it again. So first thing I always would recommend is use this guide and ask yourself some effective questions to start evaluating how you're doing with all this. How much time is too much with a buyer or seller? Do you guys ask yourself that? At what point am I going to cut this buyer off? At what point am I going to have that important conversation and say, hey, we're wasting each other's time? How much time do you think you put into buyers and sellers? Buyers.
I want the easier question. Seller is basically, the time you do with a seller is up front, explaining to them the correct price to list the house at and how you work it and how the process goes. So there's probably 3 hours with a seller up front, and then after it, it's 10 minutes a week, if that.
Might be 10 hours during a whole deal, right?
If that. With buyers, you really ought to sit them down and do a 1 to 1.5 hour consultation, either before you show them or after you show them a couple. And if they're not willing to do that, they don't get me for any more time. Because if they can't take, and I explain it this way, I says, I need to sit with you to go over what it is you're looking for, because it's important that I'm not showing you the wrong homes. So I let them know I'm not going to be showing them the wrong homes. I only want to show you homes that might make sense. And the more time we spend up front talking about it, the less time we spend looking at homes that don't make any sense. And that convinces most people that they should sit down. So long as you turn it around to show that you're taking time up front to save both of us time later on. But buyers, shit, I don't work with
What's
buyers
too
so
much time? What
Um,
was it, like? At what point would you feel like maybe I'm spending too much time with you?
I would say if I hit a half a week, like 20 hours
Yeah.
total with buyers, because just to set up 4 appointments, you got to, go through the computer, find out if they're still on, either go through MAPass or call the agents, depending upon how they schedule it. And then you got to coordinate what's the best route to take them on. And then I got to set it up. And if one of those things, like I got 3 of them, but one of them says, oh, they had a time won't work, we got to move it. Then I got to call the other 3 back and do it.
So and
So-
gas should be mandatory.
Yeah, so coordinating all that shit is just a lot of work. And then once you meet them at houses, sometime, and I tell people this, listen, we go in, if you hate it, you're not hurting my feelings. Tell
I
me
do the
right
same
away.
thing.
So we
Right.
get the fuck out of
Get
here.
out.
Right?
Yeah.
Get out quick.
And I want to run them.
It's a constant management of time, even when you're at showings.
Oh, yeah.
And some
Even
people
when they're
just like,
doing down,
"Oh, honey,
like-
come look at this. I mean, they just look at stuff and okay, well,
It doesn't drive you nuts when they look through the house, look through every cupboard, look through every closet. Like, what do you think? No, we hated it from the beginning. Like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, oh, we
You know-
hate it. Let's go in the basement. Why?
The problem is, it's for a lot of people that buy a house. It's almost like a hobby for them. It becomes a hobby. It becomes this is fun. The process of going out and looking at houses is fun. For you, it's like, God damn, like we gotta
one of the-
get you
One of the
moving.
things I educate people on the market conditions and say, listen, there's very few homes like this, so when we do find the right one, you really ought to jump and you ought to jump strong, or you might miss the opportunity. And if I start to hear or sense that, oh, we really need to see, a good friend of mine, Tim, told us we need to look at least 30 houses. Whoever that
Look
person,
at 30 houses with Tim.
so
Yeah.
so you know,
And then come
actually-
back to me when you're ready.
yeah, and basically when I get that, a sense that they really want to look at it all because they want to learn the market, well, I every once in a while I will pull this card out and I'll say, well, listen, I do have two ways I work with buyers. One is under agreement with a contract that basically it's a marriage certificate that helps us work together. The other way, if you prefer just to look at properties, I have a per property fee that's $150 per property. So if you want to look at properties, I'll show you everything on the market, $150 each.
You get anyone to take that route?
No, but it smartens them up to realize, okay, I don't want to do that. Or if we don't hit it off, that's okay. I haven't spent a fucking ton of Sunday showing them properties that don't make any sense. So I spend more time quizzing the crap out of people than I used to. And now that I'm in my 60s, I get a little more crotchety and my patience is lower. Because the truth is, hourly, whatever that rate is, I'd rather be spending time with my kids seeing grandbaby
Right.
or surfing. Anything but wasting time with people who
Mhm.
are going to suck the life out of me. So if you look at my
Exactly.
deals,
Yeah.
there's this many listings that I do in a year, and then there's this many buyer sides that I'm on. I'll always do
Right.
buyer sides because people that you've helped, they say, "Oh, can you help my son?" You say no, it's like sticking a finger off at that. You know, just say no.
Right. The thing you also have to think about is if you spend time on someone that doesn't end up closing, whether it's a non-serious buyer or non-serious seller, if you said, okay, it takes on average 40 hours to close a buyer, if you take that one commission, it's a pretty good rate per hour. You're probably making $75, $100 an hour. But now if you have to split it because one, you just wasted all this time and energy, and now you're only making $50 an hour. So it's important to understand though that the time you invest in people, you make sure you're investing in somebody you really believe is going to close with you, you know,
And encourage them to get pre-approved
Yeah.
locally.
so
And if you've had enough people who came with you with a .com thing and they didn't close on time,
Rocket mortgage.
Yeah.
or it didn't work, you say, listen, I had somebody that the transaction at the end fell apart and the people were bawling their eyes out because the company online who didn't do their job, didn't know the local customs, didn't do their job, they couldn't qualify. Do you want to end up like that?
right.
Tell them a horror story and I don't know.
I mean,
Call my cousin.
the good part in this market is with sellers is most of them are fairly realistic and they're fairly happy with what they're getting. So there's not a lot of time I see being wasted on sellers now. The time that's being wasted on is on buyers. I've had a lot of agents tell me like recently, I just can't get my buyer to realize what they need to do to compete in this market. And that is a tough thing, but if they just can't get their head around it, that every time they see a house in their price range come to the market, they're going to have to go list price or over to have a shot at it, then, then maybe it's time.
So far,
I've had a buyer I've been
so
kind of
far.
on that fence
Stuff
with,
is
and
insane.
I told him just, you're just going to have to watch the market and watch things come on and go off for a while. And when you're comfortable in your head and you're ready to compete with that, he's like, I just don't want to make a bad investment. I feel like this market's a bad investment. Like, as long as you think that and you're not like looking like, hey, this is gonna be my house and my home, then you're probably gonna have to wait. Maybe it changes this winter, but it's not gonna change any time before that. And I know I'd be wasting my time if I went out and worked with that guy. So it's important to ask yourself those questions. Are you effectively using the real estate tools to help you save time? Make sure you're using all the tools that you have at your advantage with Dotloop. And if you need a little bit extra learning, it's a good investment to invest in your learning to make sure you're using some of these things effectively. We talked about boundaries. Do you have the boundaries with your clients? Do you set them and then sometimes have to reset them? You know, if they're out there 4 weekends in a row and not making any offers in this market, there's a problem. Something's a problem. What value do you give yourself per hour basis? What's your time?
At least $200 an hour.
I'd say any agent should be shooting for at least $100 an hour.
Yeah. That's
Knowing
face- that's
that you're
face-to-face
not
time.
gonna spend 40 hours a week on that $100 an hour kind of activity. If you're working with a full time and you're trying to make a good living, you probably spend at least half your week with that $100 per hour work, and the other half is a mix of prospecting and $15 an hour work. And if you look at it from that perspective, it'll help you understand that, crap, I'm really only spending 10 hours a week right now on that $100 hour work. So I probably need to spend some more time on the prospecting side to get me more into that $100 per hour work. It's also important to look at that too, because when you start to break down how many hours you're prospecting a week, and agents look at lead gen systems and say, oh, they're so goddamn expensive. But look at the amount of time you spend on prospecting. And if you feel your time is should be worth even prospecting $30 an hour, and you said, I'm going to prospect 15 hours a week, let's just run that quick math. If you said 15 hours a week prospecting, $30 an hour, 4 weeks, that's $1,800 per month. And let's say with those efforts, you get even 3 solid new leads. That's $600 per lead. It's no cheaper than you're going to spend on lead generation. So you spend money on lead. I mean, some of us have to, do a mix of it until we have the cash flow to pay for those kind of things. And that's something you manage. But at some point, there's a reason that all top agents spend money on marketing, because they know their time is more valuable than the money that they would spend, than the time they would spend on prospecting. They want the leads coming to them so that they maximize the $100 per hour work they're doing. And it's just, until then, you just need to understand that there's differences in the value of that.
You have to invest your time or your money. You have to pay for leads, or you have to park your ass at an open house every single Sunday. Or twilight, door knocking.
Door
picking up
knock,
the phone, calling
handwritten
for sale
notes.
by own, FSBOs, expireds, and cancels.
All right. What time are you spending doing $10 an hour work? It's important to know what you're doing. It's not $10 work. I mean, admin work's probably $15 hour work, but we all spend time on it. I even spend time on it. Sometimes I slap myself in the head like, what the fuck am I doing?
Bring shit up like this.
Because it's busy. Sometimes we do it because it's busy work, and we're like, okay, I don't want to prospect, so let me do some busy work
I've washed my floor before.
to avoid the prospecting.
And
I was
every-
like, at least I'll brush the dog.
and
Right.
every once
You
in
see
a
me
while,
pushing chairs around the office. That's probably because I'm avoiding something.
it's stressful to do the work we have to do to be successful. So you will, and I'm guilty of it. I'll do stuff that, just to evade making those phone calls to these people because I don't want to fucking talk. And I will, I'll do it for a while. Then I'll stop and I'll say, stop doing this. It's not effective. It's not getting you anywhere. It's good to have a little mental break because, you're doing something physical. Your mind's not on it. And then at some point you just have to say, okay, suck it up. And they call it eat that frog. Look at your priority, things you got to do today, and what's the hardest thing to do. The hardest thing is probably the most rewarding. So do that first. Take the worst thing and get that shit out of the way. And once you get it out of the way, whether it's successful or not, you've done what you set out to do. The rest of the day should be easy. It's like you're falling downhill.
Kind of like relieved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people
It's like
recommend
the
prospecting
anxiety and
first thing in the
stress
morning.
But that,
lot of people recommend prospecting first thing in the morning.
Oh.
Less time to come up with excuses why you can't do it.
And people will say, but no, but everybody's working during the day. There's always a million excuses why not to do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Don't worry about
I know, people
reasons
think
why.
that nobody's home during the day. If you drive down any street, you'd be like, wow, look at all the cars and the
Go
homes.
shopping.
think
It's like, don't
I don't think
everybody
anybody
work.
You know,
Right.
everybody else doing real estate too.
You go to the gym in the
Right.
middle of the day, expecting to have the place to yourself, and it's
Right.
packed. It's like, don't people work?
Right, exactly.
Get on my treadmill.
So just making sure you schedule your time, your work time, and schedule your off time. You got to schedule off time too. If your mind is constantly consumed with work, that's not a good thing either. So then you're working 80 hours a week. That's not good for anybody.
I like the second page that says working with buyers and how to optimize.
Yes, we're going to go through that.
That is awesome.
The second part, money. Knowing how much your business costs to run. Knowing how much does it cost to close a certain number of deals per year if you're doing certain marketing activities. What lead sources are you paying for, and what is the return or expected return on your money? That's important to know. Even like the office realtor.com leads, I run a spreadsheet and I want to know from agents, what do you got coming up that's closing? What buyers do you have that you're working with that are you think will close in the next 6 to 12 months? And you should all be doing that with your own business too, is having an understanding. These are all the leads I have. And give them different weights. You know, if you have something listed, 75% of the time those should close. If you have a buyer under agreement, 75% of the times those should close. It means 1 out of 4 is going to fall apart for some stupid reason. If they're out looking homes and making offers, you might give them like a 33% score. I mean, 1 out of those 3 buyers that would be in that kind of position will close, maybe 2. But if you weigh the averages, you'll get an idea of whether you're on track or off track. And if you're spending money on marketing, it helps you see if you're actually getting, because too many agents I hear like that spend money on stuff like that, they're like, I haven't had any closings in 6 months, it sucks, I'm done. And my question is, well, how many people are in there that are going to close in the next 6 months? You're not going to necessarily get your return after 6 months. For instance, the Real.com leads we're spending, I've been doing it for 7 months now, and we just broke even after 7 months on the expenses of it. Now I know there's at least a few more buyers in there, so I know there's a positive return on that investment, but it hasn't come yet. That's okay. You just have to know whether it is or isn't. You have to analyze it. You have to know, hey, is the money I'm spending, is it worth it? Am I going to get my return? Because in real estate, it's not overnight. You might have people in your leads that you're paying for that aren't going to close for another year, but as long as you keep poking them every once in a while, you're going to eventually get a return on that expenditure.
I spend a lot of money I spend a lot of money for a quasi lead generating thing. It's called BNI, Business Network International.
Mm-hmm.
Every Thursday morning, I'm there from 7 to 8:30. And then I do a little bit more, and that costs me $600 a year. And then a room dues, so it's more, like $700 a year. And I've been doing it for like 8 years. I just closed from 2 different people. One of them was a $270,000 sale, and those people bought a $600,000 purchase. That was from one person in the group. From the other person, we just did a $370,000 purchase, and if the other agent from the Boston area pulls their head out of the butt, we will have a $270,000 sale. So that's with BNI. So
But those don't happen overnight either. You have to spend the time.
I've been there for 8 years.
Right.
And I've gotten a few here and there, but these are the first time I've gotten like double hits from one. So 2 referrals from 2 different people in my networking group that I've known forever. It takes a long time to build that trust thing. I can refer out a florist real easy at $75. To refer out a real estate attorney or a real estate agent, oh my God, that's big. That's different. But in these deals, I've made enough money to pay for my BNI dues for the rest of my BNI life.
And if you probably did the analysis, the amount of time you spend on it, you're getting a good return on your invested time too.
I mean, I don't, you're supposed to do one-to-ones with meeting with people outside the meeting. I kind of suck at that. But I do bring them, when I'm doing stuff, I refer a lot of business to the other people in the group. So opportunist, I wait for those, somebody says they need a so-and-so, so I refer them to people in the group. So I'm really good at some parts and not so good at the other.
All right, let's move on to working with buyers and how to optimize your invested time and money. So these are some rules I think agents should live by, or make your own rules. Never take out a new buyer out to see more than 1 or 2 homes before asking them to sit down for an office consultation. Sometimes you just got to book appointment. They're not going to come in the office before you have to go out and meet them somewhere.
Up there with the leads.
Yeah, with the
So,
leads, they
yeah,
just with the leads, they just want to see the damn house.
Right, and you're gonna.
Then you can build your rapport, but you're going to have to go see it. Sometimes it's just inevitable. If it's a referral, you can, most of the time, I think you can get them to come in and sit down.
Yeah.
But
But the
leads,
you gotta
definitely.
go meet them
and just know that that's an investment. But if you invest in 1 or 2 showings, it's not a huge
and then- It's a
investment.
half hour,
Right.
an hour maybe.
Right. Just don't go down the rabbit hole of, letting that go on forever, is my opinion. Require that all buyers come in the office for office consultation and get pre-approved before going out on any more showings. I think probably the biggest factor in you being able to control the relationship and control how it's going to go is an office consultation. You can't do it. I don't think you can do it at a showing, at the counter, at somebody else's kitchen. You got to do it in your environment, whether it could be a Starbucks, it could be here.
Well, to that point, if you don't sit them down and get them to sign the buyer contract, you're actually a facilitator. That's what I learned in that facilitator class.
You're actually, if you sign a relationship disclosure form stating that you are a buyer's agent, you are a buyer's agent for them.
You're supposed to have the agreement, is what they told
No,
us.
if you sign that form, in their mind, you are their buyer's agent. They
Yeah.
owe you absolutely what?
Nothing.
And that's practicing unsafe agency. Don't do it. It's dangerous. But you sign that saying you were their buyer's agent,
Yeah.
you are.
Right.
So it's not an exclusive thing, but you've committed to protect them.
Yeah.
So that's why that.
But you probably shouldn't unless you actually have a buyer.
You shouldn't,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and basically, when I do my consultation, they sign that saying they want me to be their agent, okay? Immediately, here's the agreement that spells out the terms on how we work together. Or here's the form that spelled the softer word. A contract is worse.
Yeah, no.
Agreement is a little tough, but here's the,
That's a good way to spin it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, here you sign this. Oh, this is what goes with it.
automatically, they're right there. As soon as one's signed, okay, this spells out the details on how we work together.
Oh,
Because
I
there's
like
certain
that.
things, well, that's what you pay the big bucks for. There are certain things that I have to do because as a professional, I have to. And there are certain rules that you have to follow. Me? Rules? What are you talking about? The biggest rule we have to explain to them at that. The form says that they have to ask our permission before attending an open house. That's what that contract states.
Yeah.
I think that's insane, but it's our job to tell them how they must behave. When they walk over a threshold to somebody else's open house, they have to say, oh, by the way, I am represented by my professional buyer's agent. She's a wonderful person. And I'm going to put her name down, and I'm going to just put my first name. So if you need to talk to anybody, you call my agent.
I used to give them a stack of cards too.
Stack
They
of
go
cards.
to an open house, give them my card. So
There
they know
was
that
a-
you're working with.
Yeah.
Back in '94, like the second year buyer agency grew up, they'd have a pin. I am professionally represented by Tim.
Really?
Really? I don't know if they want to.
That's kind of
I want it.
that's kind of weird, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, oh, my agent is.
Get one of those little digital ones that goes on there and said, I'm representing.
But I mean, if you coach and counsel them and do it the right way, if you explain the relationship disclosure and they like you enough to say, yeah, we want to definitely work with you, great.
And if you're standing in someone else's kitchen, they're preoccupied by what they're looking at. They're not paying attention to you as you're
No.
going through this whole.
No, definitely not. So, all right. So if you're meeting with them, I walk them through MLS, start to dig through what they like and dislike. That's a large part of the conversation you should have when you're meeting with them. Set expectations on how many homes it should take to find a home. Say, typically with my clients, we're going to find a house in the first 8 to 12 that you're going to like and you're going to want to make an offer on. When you do that kind of stuff, it starts setting in their own mind, okay, we've reached 12, we're not finding, and don't be afraid to tell them, if they go beyond it, maybe we need to sit down again. I'm seeming to not be able to find you what you want, or we're not moving fast enough, or we're being outbid all the time. Let's meet and chat about it.
What do you do if they are actually putting their best foot forward?
Then,
I mean,
then you
got
can't.
people going, what was
I don't know.
Alicia's went, I can't even, like $60,000 over asking.
Seriously?
It's never gonna appraise, but there's
Yeah.
no appraisal contingency in there. So I'm hoping it goes, because that just helps me. It's in my area.
Right.
It's like, thank you.
Right. Then you start sending to all the neighbors, say, hey, did you see how much this house sold for?
Right?
It's a crazy, crazy market.
It
Yeah.
really is. It's like, you can't even really blame the buyers
Uh,
at this
You do the
point.
best you can with what you have.
Yeah. Yeah, if they're making legitimate tries, there's nothing you
Right.
can do about that.
Yeah.
Educating the buyers in the process of buying a home, it's important. Make buyers sign a buyer agency agreement. Exit rate partners shall be compensated as offered in MLS. That's one way to do it. Some agents are starting to do it where they say, but no less than 2.5%. And when buyers ask that question, they say, well, if they're offering less than 2.5%, we're going to try to get it from the seller.
Right.
If they can't, you may have to make up 0.5%. There's some agents that have made that decision as a business and are successful with it. Some are doing it at 3. I mean, certain companies are teaching them to do it at 3, but I think minimum you should be trying to go for is 2.5.
Still a tough market. And you can't ask you're not gonna ask the
You're
seller
going
right now in
to, at
most
some point, I
cases.
think, unless you, as a buyer's agent, you just kind of want to live with being paid less. I think you're starting to see more and more too, because the listing agents are looking at like, this house is going to sell no matter what. You don't want to show your buyer the house at 2, then they're going to either come to me direct
That's what I did.
or they're going to go somewhere else. They don't really care because they know it's going to sell no matter what. It's
There's so
like
many
back in the
twos out
market
there
when,
now, too. I never did it before, but now, and I'm so sick of doing the work for both agents. So that's my listing. I'm putting 2%. If you work the exit and you do a good job, I'll give you 2.5.
The
But I'm
caution
making
with-
that
yeah,
decision
the caution
after.
with, I always tell my people, I typically split whatever fee I get half and half. If I know there's gonna be a problem, I might keep a little bit more for myself if it's a short sale or a closure. There's some things I know I'm gonna be working longer or putting more money in myself. But it's hard because if you set yourself up, they will call you the George Russells, the Jules Sigmans. You don't want to get that as
But-
an individual.
some areas are moving to that as a standard. Leominster area, it's all 2. all
Webster,
two.
a lot of 2. Webster, Dudley, a lot of 2 because of lakes and
Yeah.
Hope.
And they're taking 3. The seller
Right.
goes-
Oh, yeah, they
Oh, no,
definitely
they take
want.
it 4 because
Some
they're
of them are
taking
taking
it
4.
at 6.
Yeah, that's why I think at some point, and you can also set the boundaries with it and say, look, if we're not running out looking at 100 homes, then, when you find your home in the first, what we probably should, first 8 to 12 properties, I'm not going to make a big deal about the 2%.
Correct.
So then you're also kind of setting that tone, like if we're going out to look at 50 properties, then yeah, I'm probably going
I
to,
expect to be paid.
I expect to be paid. So it's something to think about. It's definitely something to think about in the future, especially as we're seeing more and more 2s coming
You
out.
should always get a
Yeah.
contract that says at least 2.5. You can always back
And-
off.
And the other reason to put as offering MLS and some kind of minimum on it is a couple of agents recently came and said there's listings coming out for like 0.5%. There was one with 0. Michael Duffy put it on the board offering 0% on a
Yeah,
multifamily.
that's insane.
So what happens then? If you don't have a contract,
A few years back, there was somebody who was talking that pretty soon the offering of compensation of other agents is going to go by the wayside. When you hire me to sell your property, you pay me my listing side. When you hire me to represent you as a buyer, you pay me for my buying expertise. There would be no offer of compensation for MLS. I think we might be light years away from that, but it's
Yeah.
something that's been discussed.
yeah, I've heard that.
And the reality is the people who were keeping and saving more for themselves and offering low, when the market's not as easy, you remember those people. And when the market's not as automatic as you put a house on the market that sells, you say, okay, so-and-so didn't treat me nice. Just be careful with it.
Mhm.
There's a way though, there's a specific way of writing into the offer to get, like say they offer 2%, you want the seller to pay.
Mhm.
I wasn't aware of it.
There's two avenues. Before you make the appointment to go, say, thank you, Mr. McCarthy, for letting me show your property. I appreciate, and I really want to cooperate with you. However, I'm rejecting that offer of compensation. take that offer and stick it where the sun doesn't shine. Should my client be interested in a property, our offer. If you reject it, then you can do anything you want with it later on. So you have to, as the agent, reject it before you make the appointment. And if your buyer wants to do something, you write it in special, saying, we've previously rejected your offer. My clients wish the seller to pay 2.5% for my fee, and we really don't care what you do. The problem with that is if you reject the offer of compensation, you've rejected it. So even if they were offering 2, now that you rejected it and you want to get 2.5 or 3, they might say, oh, you rejected my offer. I spoke to the seller, my girlfriend, and she now wants to only offer a 1% to you. I know you wanted 3, but yes. So if you reject it, you open it up to full negotiations. The other way is if you don't do it up front, you have to put it very carefully that it's not you asking for it. My sellers, my buyers are asking that you pay an additional percent or half, whatever, to cover their agreement with Exit Realty.
Yeah.
So you can do that, but it can't be coming from you as the agent. It has to come from the buyers.
Right.
That you have to word it
Because
so
you
it says
can't.
it's from them.
You can't interfere with their contract.
Right.
Exactly.
And we don't know what their contract is. All we know is we don't care what their contract
Well, we know
is.
the
All we know what
contract
they're
is to
offering.
offer us.
Yeah, that's
Right.
the MLS unilateral.
So, yeah, so with that, also if they balk about it, you can explain the fact that, just like you would with a seller and trying to negotiate commission, maybe you don't understand, but the commission there's an office split, we pay taxes, all the gas, wear and tear, me running around. I don't make a lot off every sale.
Right.
Marketing.
See it,
They always see the global number, like, oh, we're buying a $300,000 house, you're gonna make at least $6,000 at 2%. Why? You know what I mean? They don't look at
And that's when I don't know if I have enough to do it, but
Oh,
that's when you
the
have
dollar
these-
bill trick,
You have your 1, 2. What did you say we got? 6%?
6%.
3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So basically, that's the commission. That's the full commission. Well, most houses sell with a co-broker, and that's it. My company, Tracy Bobby, he's a horrible boss. He doesn't.
He
He
gets one of
lets the
those.
water run and the heat and air conditioning. That's fine. Do you have taxes taken out of your check? Yeah. Well, we don't have any taxes taken out of our check. Okay, so before I start to do anything, this is all I got left, and I got to run my business with that.
And that's if you close.
That's if it closes.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then that doesn't even.
I get nothing.
So that's effective when people start to say, "Oh, you guys, did you see my Cadillac out front? When I start my car up, it blows blue smoke. I'm embarrassed. I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to get a new car, but I can't afford it yet. Pretty soon.
Exactly. The other thing you should consider is, if it's not the right buyer for you, refer them to somebody else that's maybe doesn't value their time as much as you do. Give that
somebody, if they're okay buyer, refer to somebody in the office. If they're somebody else, refer them to the competition.
Exactly.
And at some point, if you spent the time counseling, getting a contract signed, but they're just not like you think they're tire kickers, basically ask them for another meeting. Come into the office and basically point the finger at yourself, saying, "Geez, Jen, Tim, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I thought we looked at everything that was on the market that fit your wants and needs, and yet you haven't written it off on anything. What am I doing wrong?" And it's not you. They may have a problem where they're not even going to be together anymore. You never know what's going on. But if you pry and ask enough times, so what's going on? How can I do my job to help you? And ask them and dig until they tell you
That's true.
it ain't you, it's us.
Yeah.
Okay.
My job is to help you find a home. What am I doing? It's not helping you get there.
And if you push enough, they'll tell you what's wrong. They might not. And if it's
We're
something you can
scared.
change,
We don't want
change
to
it.
overpay. What if we have to sell it in 2 years and the value's not there because we're paying such a stupid price right now? These are all things that people have going on in their head right now.
What if it just keeps going up? So, I know.
Right.
I'll tell you what's really.
Even if it goes down, the interest rates go up, you're going to be paying the same amount per month.
And if they and say, listen, if I had the answers to that, I'd be on a mountain in Tibet. Crystal balls. I'd be
Right?
telling them,
Yeah.
and don't be afraid to let people go. And if they won't answer you, just say, okay, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry I let you down. Good luck with the rest of your search. In other words, fire yourself in a nice way. And if they say, no, we love, then they might tell you. But when I sit down and reevaluate, sometimes you learn shit that, oh, okay, maybe I didn't listen to them properly the first time, and you bring them to the right house and it does it right away. Most times they've got shit going on in their life that they just don't want to share with you.
And also depends.
Even as simple as, I thought this is what you wanted in a house. I don't know. I think we've changed our mind. And they don't come out and just tell you that stuff.
They
You
do
gotta ask.
change. So you got to double check with them. One technique when I look at how I help them, I said, listen, there are so many facets and components of each home that you can't keep. I know the T&G used to have a farm where you could compare homes. That doesn't work. What you really need to do is say, okay, if this house and this house were the only two houses on the market today, and I had to buy right this minute, which one would I buy? Make a decision, throw the other house away. So now this is the one. You go look at the next house. Okay, this one versus this one. You had to buy right now. Which one? Okay, this is the new one. Okay, so only focus on one house. And at the end of that day, can you see yourself living in that house? Ask the question. They might, if you don't ask, they might not know. They might say, oh, we think we need to look at more. Can you see yourself living in a house? Let's see how it looks on paper. Fill out the offer. Not right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, let's move on to sellers. Talking about saving time and money. Anytime you get a seller lead, you got to find out how serious they are. I mean, you've got not it's as hard now as it used to be, but you still have people that are like, I don't have to sell. Oh no. Always watch out for things like, I don't have to sell. If I got the right price. And sometimes they can get it in this market and it's not a big deal, but keep that in mind. Serious doesn't mean they won't. Even if they say they're serious, doesn't mean they're not going to want to overprice their home. It's always good when you start talking to sellers to ask them if they know if they have a feeling for what their house is worth. Sometimes
they'll tell you what their house is worth, and they'll tell you that the house down is value. We go back 6 months, and the reason I will justify that is saying, listen, the appraiser, when the appraiser comes through, they're going to use the same data I do, and they're going to tell you about their neighbor's house that just sold, should be last month, a couple months ago, but it's actually 4 or 5 years ago. So when you do a market analysis, you want to do that 6-month thing, give them a value. But you also, when you're going into that house, you want to say, okay, what street do you live on, Tracy? Maple Ave, Shrewsbury. Okay, everything on Maple Ave and Shrewsbury that sold in the last 2 years, I'm going to know about. And when they say, oh, my neighbor just sold for 3 houses down. Yeah, that just sold 3 years ago. Oh, you mean the market's different now? Oh, yeah, very different. I'm going to get you more. No, most of the time they only will remember the high numbers, never the low number sales. So learn the market generally, and then give them everything in that neighborhood that might have. If it's a house that makes no sense, don't bring it. But if it's a house that's somewhat comparable, bring that. Bring those with you. So if they say, oh yeah.
I also try to never give my number prior to asking them what they think their house is worth. Even if they say, I don't know, say, okay, we'll go over the market analysis and say, based on this, what do you think your house is worth? Because sometimes people still have that stupid number in their head. And if you've spit out your number before hearing their number and deciding how to deal with that unrealistic expectation, you just spit out a number and either embarrass them or made them basically close up shop right there and be like, okay, well, we're interviewing 3 agents and we'll get back to you. Because they don't want to hear it, and you need to hear their number first. Okay.
Sometimes I also tell them, you can either, do you want to sell really quick, or do you want to wait and see if you can get what you want? I try that approach too. Say, this is the range. If you really want to go at the top, it might take longer to sell. But if you put it lower, then you might have to bid more and actually get up to where you are.
Right.
It's up to you. Would you want it? So you're the one's going to decide whether you want to.
Right. People are really maximizing their dollar in the first 2 weeks in the market. There's no doubt. And you got to be priced right for that. You can't be priced high. If you price high, you may only get 1 offer.
Right.
If you price right, you might get 3 or 4, and then they're going to pay more because they're going to say, I don't want him to get it. I want to get it. I don't want to get, and they're all 3 or 4 of them are saying, I need it more than they need it,
Or if it's priced too high, people might not even go see it.
right? And then as soon as you're on the market 3 weeks, that interest drops off. So it's important to have those conversations with them to make sure it's priced well. Because if you get a well-priced listing, there's no better feeling than leaving that listing appointment when you know it's pretty much sold. Just a matter of how much. You list it, have an open house on Sunday, you get offers in, you process them. You don't have to go to a home inspection. All you have to do is set up the attorneys with each other, make sure everything's going smooth. Your job's done. You just made a nice amount of money per hour. So it's important that pricing is important and getting them to agree with a number that you can agree upon.
I think it's, don't you find it harder to sell you as their realtor when they're coming off of Zillow or something like that? Cold. Why would they want you as opposed to anybody else? You need-
As far as a listing appointment goes?
Yeah.
Have you found that going there they feel that way, or you feel that way before you're going?
I can't even get them to get there. So I don't know.
Get to
what
the
it-
meeting or
Yeah,
get-
to even have a listener or meet to, oh, I'm just curious. I'm not sure. We're still thinking about it. Don't want to do it now. Maybe in a couple of months.
There's some people that are going to be tough to break and get your foot in the door.
This is obviously my least expertise. I'm more of a buyer, but it's because
Yeah.
I'm trying to switch to listings and I just.
Yeah, I mean, the only tricks you can try to use are like, is you really, and to get the best idea of what your house can sell for and what you might want to do to get it ready for market is you really got to have someone stop by.
Yeah.
If you want me to stop by it, it's not like I'm going to bring any paperwork or anything. I'm just willing to stop by, chat with you for a few minutes, and then be on my merry way, just to help you out and be willing to be, to give you some advice as you're getting ready, since you said you're a few months down the road. It's like a non-confrontational.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even bring any paperwork or anything. I just stop by.
Johnny Moe. Great. Now's the perfect time to meet.
The market's fluctuating and sometimes the online reports aren't accurate. My job would be to just come over, look at your house, tell you what looks good, what looks like you might want to make some changes on. And then I'll go back afterwards if you want, and then I can tell you my range that I think it might sell in. So that's estimate. I love that because my house, and look on your house and Google it or Zillow it, my house, I think 4 1/4, I'd be happy. I think the last RPR or Zillow thing was like 475. No, I can't sell it for that, but I'd be happy.
I mean, also going into a listing presentation, unless it's like someone that's, and even with family or friends or a really close referral, I still say don't cut corners, because that one time you cut the corners, you're thinking you're getting a listing, and then someone else went in and did a bang up job, and they're like, what happened? And like, oh well, we just felt they were better suited to the job, and it might be because you treated it like I'm just getting it.
Yeah,
So
I did that, but I lost it based on the price.
yeah,
They went $70,000 over what I said,
yeah, wow.
and it sold 6 months later for $100 more than I said.
$100 more than you said. Yeah, wow. So
Thanks, Auntie.
So yeah, with listing appointments, you want to have your presentation ready. You want to be ready to explain what you do to market the homes. First thing I believe you want to do is, this was from Floyd Wickman, is you want to greet them and pay some compliment about their house when you walk in, smile, and you want to control the appointment. You want to sit down and at the table, you want to say, okay, this is what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to want to walk around your house. We can talk about your house. We're going to come back down. We're going to review what I do to market homes. And then we're going to go through a market analysis. And then we're going to both decide whether we want to work with each other or not. It's good to set that tone and to, create that control early on. And then, as you're walking through the house, you're showing them that you have some expertise, saying, I might move this to here to make this room look a little bigger. I might brighten up the paint. And you want to ask him in a way, and this came from Johnny Lowy. Some of the Johnny Lowy stuff was okay. It's always good to ask him, what would you do? Or what would you think about this room if you were a buyer? If you saw this, what would you think as a buyer? Because you want them to make decisions. You don't want to all of a sudden say, oh, this friggin' color is ridiculously ugly, and it's their favorite room in the house. But you do all those things, and then you sit down and you want to talk about what you're going to do to market the home before anything else. And the reason being is you want to get them to agree that they agree with your marketing plan before you get them to agree on price. The reason being is people will use other things when they're just really not happy about your price and they don't want to tell you. For instance, if you walk through, okay, this is what I'm going to do to market homes. I'm bringing a photographer. We're going to do a boost on Facebook. We're going to do an open house. We're going to list it on Tuesday and have a first open house on Sunday and no showing. So we're going to build up the interest, and we're going to do this and this we're going to put signs out in the neighborhood on a Saturday morning for the Sunday open house to make sure we have lots of traffic through. Whatever you're going to do, you explain all that and say, based on all those things, my marketing plan, if we can agree on price, which we're going to go over next, would you be ready to list with me today? It's an important question to ask because at some point, if they don't agree on your price, they could just turn it back and say, well, we want to see how other agents are going to market the homes. If you handled that already, they're like, oh, I thought we were in agreement that you thought my marketing plan was pretty good. Is it price that we're talking about? Is that your only issue? Because otherwise people will make every excuse in the book and they'll blame it on something else. So it's good to get that first acceptance up front. Like, okay, yeah, your marketing plan sounds great. So let's talk about price.
Yeah.
And then you go through the market analysis. And then again, I really think you want to try to get them to say, okay, after going through all these comps, where do you feel your house fits in? Where do you think your house would want to be priced if you were a buyer to make you interested in the home? And if they say something high, can you ask them to explain it? Okay, all these comps were in the 240 to 260 range. Do you mind explaining to me why you feel yours is worth 280? I'm just curious, because buyers are going to ask these questions too. And then who knows what they have? Well, that's the Zillow estimate. That's what we need. Okay, why do you need that much? Explain that to me. What's your mortgage? Why do you feel you know what I mean? Well, that's what we paid for. You get all kinds of crazy stuff. That's what we paid for. We're not selling it for a penny less. Okay, so your goal is to go do this. You're willing to sacrifice those goals because of that. I mean, you got to get through a lot of stuff sometimes with these people, and those are questions and hard things you're gonna have to get through. I don't know about you guys, but with my market analysis, I bring the market analysis, and then the ones that I think are most like that house, I'll bring the full listing sheets with all the pictures. Because the first thing they're gonna say is, well, that one's not as nice as my house. Oh, I just brought the full listing sheet on that one. Let's take a look at the pictures. Oh, kitchen looks updated. Oh, this is all nice. It's very nice. Now they're like, they don't. Okay, well, maybe you're right. And then go back to, okay, we talked about it again. Do you understand where I'm coming from with my number? And that's what you're all trying to work out. So
And being prepared is huge. I went to a listing
being very,
presentation, and I got the listing, and later I asked them why, and they're like, well, you seem like you have more knowledge about things, and you kind of went through the whole process. And they said one of the people that came brought one sheet of paper with them. That was it. That was their entire presentation, and said, this is what I think your house is worth. And that was it.
Yeah, I would bring your market analysis. I would bring the RPR report.
Yeah.
I would bring the public record data, a list of other properties that are on the market in the price range, full listing sheets, as much data as you can bring it. The more you bring, the better, really. So once you've negotiated price, the next thing to do is, great, you ready to get started today? Let's sign a listing agreement. Pull out that listing agreement that's got 6% in it. And 9 times out of 10, what are they going to say? That same steep.
The other person to do it for
It's
more.
alive, feel.
Free.
But some people, you're just like, this is my brokerage fee, and they're like, okay.
Well, that's why I typed it in there.
Yeah.
There's a reason it's typed in there.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
psychologically, if it's typed in there, they think that's our standard. And you could say for the marketing that we offer with the virtual tours, I'm going to have a professional photographer, all the Facebook boosts I'm going to do, all this other marketing that we're going to do, the virtual tours, the websites, the open houses. That's what we get, 6% fee. If you want to market your house effectively to get top dollar, this is what I highly recommend. You want to start pulling stuff out? Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Do you have a hard time doing it with people that you know that are friends?
Yeah.
Asking for the signal?
Yeah. I mean, that can be hard. I typically, if it's a good friend, I'm probably not going to charge them 6.
Yeah, if it's family, I judge.
And even if they're an okay friend and you have 6 and 3 already in there, basically say, well, listen, one of the things with all this marketing we do, I really have 2 audiences that I sell to. It's the buying public. So I want to make sure I got good quality pictures, a real good, accurate description. I want to show the benefits of your house to the buying public. I also have another group of people that I have to sell it to. It's the other real estate brokers out there. 'Cause most homes sell with a co-broke. So I want to appeal to them with the exact same things I'm showing to the buyers, good pictures, accurate description. And I want to entice them to come look at your home before any others. Any idea how I might be able to do that?
Money.
They will answer the question. Any idea how I can entice
So
them?
if
to
you
come
were,
look at yours?
and
So
I've
would
seen
you-
people write it on a piece of paper, 2, 2.5, 3. If you were a buyer agent and you had to sell your buyer house this weekend and there was a bunch of homes to pick from, which one would you like to go show first? Oh, they wanted a 3. Great. It's split commission, that's 6. You know,
It's that
it's
simple.
done.
Yeah, I think by doing it that way, it kind of breaks it. Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
When you say that, my marketing is to 2 groups. There's only 2 groups of people I'm selling this house to, the buyers or the brokers. And most of the time, it's gonna be the brokers. The best way to encourage them to come to your home before somebody else's is if we lived in a Midwest where there was an A94 on every freaking corner, model home, you
Right.
could compare and say, okay, it's the exact same house, and the only way to entice them is to pay them more. Today in New England, we've got such bizarre.
And especially with certain houses, if you were selling a house that needs some rehab, needs some work, you're gonna have to potentially deal with a 2 or 3K loan, all this other crap. I highly recommend to sellers list it with 3% co-broke fee, because they're gonna have to do more work on this type of house.
Well,
You need
for
to
a home
encourage them.
Special
To
as yours, because of the things that it needs. I normally charge 6, but for you,
be 8. Right. Right. I mean, the other thing to think about is, why do agents always drop from 6 to 5? There's 4 quarters in between 6 and 5.
absolutely.
Okay, we can't do it for 6. How about 5 3/4? Oh, I don't know. That's a little steep. I don't know if I can drop any more. I could probably think about doing it. So probably could get my company to sign off on 5.5.
Right, and then you still get 3, and the buyer agent's still
Still
happy because
have
they're getting their
2.5.
2.5.
Well, you
Right.
can do 2 point. I got one in Charlton that's closing tomorrow, hopefully. I did the spiel and they said, well, what, can we try 5.5? Sure. So I offered 2.75 to the co-broke, which is pretty nice. But this one here is a weird one. I'm on both sides. At 5.5,
Right.
I'm dancing.
So sometimes you can get more commission too by throwing them a bone. So saying, all right, well, our normal fee is 6%, but I tell you what, if a buyer comes with not working with an agent, I'll knock it down to 5. And that can get the deal done sometimes too. So sometimes it's not about giving up the 6, it's about giving up if, no other agents involved. So think about that as well. And just know that you've got some room in there to hopefully land at the lowest 5. If it's any less, then it better be priced to sell in the first 2 days in the market. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't make those decisions to take those, because some of them they'll sell in the first day on the market and you're still making a high dollar per hour at 4.5. So I'm not saying don't take those, but make sure you're not just giving it away. Or there's a good, is there a good reason for it? Same thing you can do is the Matteo dollar trick. If they're starting to question why you make what you make too, is why 6%? I know you're doing marketing, this, that, and the other. So, okay, after all that money on the marketing, here's what I also have to do. Give my broker a cut, give the IRS a cut, all the other expenses I have to go to the property, and I end up with this little chunk. It's not a lot. It's not as much as you think it would be. You're not paying me by the hour. If you don't pay, if I don't sell it, I don't get paid. So it's just the nature of our business. You want to pay me per hour, we could talk about that.
Oh, and my fee is at least $200 an hour.
Right?
Would you like an 8-hour open house this Sunday? Because I need a new set of tires.
Right. So we went through that approach, showing what you net on the sale. Stop giving up half from 1% so quickly. Use commission to go back to the price. If you didn't get exactly the price you wanted, go back and say, at your price, I'm going to spend a lot of time. I think it's going to sit here for a couple months. I'm going to reduce my commission if you're willing to play with the price a little bit.
Right.
You know what I mean? So think about that too. Sometimes that comes into play. I've even had sellers say, all right, well, if you sell it for a certain dollar amount or higher, you get 6%. If you sell it for a certain dollar amount or lower, you get 5%. That's a possibility. Just make sure that your buyer agency fees probably stay the same, 2.5. But that's an option. That's certainly an option. Some sellers want to do things like, I'll sell it in the first 30 days, I'll pay you this, pay it after that. They want to give you an incentive on selling it faster. Sure, 6%. If you price it right, I sell in the first 30 days.
Another technique is to say, I get 3%, what would you like to offer the co-broker?
I had one person say nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Well, did we talk about this? Did they
I don't
ever-
know, it was like last year, this
Yeah,
guy
I
made me
remember
do
hearing
a
that
whole
story.
business proposal. He
Yeah.
interviewed like 4 agents. Do you know that house still has never been on the market?
And he doesn't want to pay a co-broke.
He did not
Yeah,
want to pay a
There was
co-broke.
somebody else who didn't want to put the property in MLS.
Tony had one.
Yeah,
They
right.
didn't want to sign and didn't want to put it in MLS.
So you don't want to sell? My
It's
job
weird.
is to
I
give
still check
your
that
property
house.
maximum exposure to the world.
Mm-hmm.
You should call. Follow up. Say, I see it hasn't sold, and you've done up in the air. Are you ready yet? This
Interviewed
is
all of
better.
us. Like, I can't tell you, I had 2 meetings with him, 2 phone. I just wanted the house because it was in Shrewsbury. That was it. So I tried and tried, and
Follow up, but nobody else is following
like
up with them.
explaining why you really want to offer a co-broke. It was.
You're gonna do what I do for Shrewsbury listings, make sure they're relatives.
I don't have any relatives. My relatives suck, and I'm
Exactly. Anything else? I think I covered mostly everything. I mean, you just have to start thinking about all of these things when you're doing your daily job and what you're putting time into, what you're putting money into, and start to really think about this on a consistent
And
basis.
we all
And we all
came
make
from-
mistakes too.
Yeah, and we all came from jobs where we got paid an hourly rate. This is not a job, this is your career. And the best way to think, if you don't have the confidence in yourself to say, I'm worth this much, think about your family or people you help out in your lifetime and say, could I help them more if I made more? Could I give more to charity if I made more? Could I become a better person to the world if I made more? And think about it. Don't be, oh, I'm not worth it. You are worth it. If you become more financially independent, you can help others around you more. So raise your level of your own self-worth. A lot of times people won't, I don't think I'm really worth that much. You are, you're worth twice what you're thinking. So whatever number you're thinking now, double it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I say every agent should be thinking that I'm worth $100 an hour.
Minimum.
At
Minimum.
least.
Because then if you
Please.
fail, you're worth $50 an hour.
Yeah.
If you think you're worth 50 and you fail, you're making $25 an hour. There's easier ways to make $20 an hour. Failing backwards to a still a decent income is okay. You know what I mean? You start thinking, oh, I'm worth $100 an hour, except I know I'm going to put 10 hours a week into $15 an hour work, and that's just the reality right now. But at least the other hours of my week should be $100 an hour work. You probably start thinking about things a little differently. Like, God, what am I doing with this buyer? You know, what am I doing wasting my time on this, wasting my time on that?
And it's hard to cut the cord when you already invest time into buyers. And
It
that's
is.
why
It's
I,
not cuts. The best thing you do, it's called pruning.
it
Then
is.
something else blossoms.
But the,
Right?
but the best thing to do is to, and when you're feeling like, am I at a level where I'm thinking I either gotta cut them loose or whatever, do that re-consultation and sit down and say, listen, I'm not listening properly. You know, point to yourself and let them fire you or let you fire yourself. Because if they're not giving you the answers to the question, and really push for the push and say, listen, I can't be doing the job for you that you've expected. What did I do wrong? What am I not hearing?
Yeah.
And if, oh, it's not you, okay. Well, if they say it 3 or 4 times, you'll say, you've said 3 or 4 times it's not me. Okay, then where's the problem?
Right.
Um,
The other thing to consider is the people you are working with, not only the time you're working with them, but what psychological effect they might be having on you that's preventing you to being good to other clients and making
and family.
money.
You
Like,
work with a buyer that took 4 hours out of your life, you might go home and kick the dog.
you might.
Yeah.
You shouldn't,
Might.
but
Which dog?
Yeah, I got 3 friggin'
I'm
dogs.
gonna kick Jeff. No, it's-
God.
So you don't kick Simmer, you kick Jeff.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, if any of you guys are gonna do a listing, I'd love to shadow. So.
Okay.
I have a lot, I have a lead source right now, it's all sellers. And I think I need to be pruned and helped and
Okay.
have some more, so if you guys